I am really excited about having Nanny here because when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I was very happy to tell my family and friends I had Parkinson's, and thank heavens I did because we have cousins in Seattle that live across the street from Nan. And so the first thing I get in the mail is this book, which is a real handful. The Neuro Writer's Guide to Peripatetic Pursuit of Parkinson's Disease. And I thought, oh my gosh. But Nan's in here, and it's a fabulous book. And so then at Christmas, I get this book from my cousin Carol that Nan has written, which is for sale today for all of you. So I've been very fortunate to meet Nan at the Hope Conference in Seattle and also in Portland at the conference. So Nan is, I was really disappointed her husband wasn't coming because Doug is a real sweetheart. But he's otherwise occupied. So Nan is going to get you all very excited about getting on a bike because boy, it makes a difference. So Nan has a PhD in anthropology. She has been married to Doug for 47 years, have a daughter and a son. They live in Seattle. So has grandchildren there. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Nan to share. Thank you.
Thanks so much for asking me. Thank you all for coming. I hope to entertain as well as inspire, and if I don't, then don't tell me because I don't go home feeling like I did a good job. When the World Parkinson's Congress was going to happen in Portland, they put out a call for videos, for amateur videos, people who had never made a video before. I thought, well, that fits me, so I would make a video. And I'm going to start out just by giving you a little overview of who I am by showing you the video, and then I'll move into the talk. So if we could turn the lights down there. Do the video. Maybe. Okay.
It worked this morning when we tried it.
You've never been riding your bike on a beautiful morning on Cinder Sport. Ride, then pitch. Think while doing all that, and you actually even better.
Steve,
What a way to be
louder,
comfortable.
louder.
Just keep it safe.
Fast-paced cycling gave me back my life. In 2009, a year into my new life with Parkinson's, I began to take charge. Learning that cycling at 80 to 90 RPMs might reduce PD symptoms, I rode almost every day. Symptoms under control, I rode across Iowa with Dr. Jay Alberts pedaling for Parkinson's team 5 times, building strength and confidence over the 450 miles. Doug and I climbed mountains. On July 18th, 2011, at age 65, I stood on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, perhaps the oldest woman with Parkinson's to do so. I drowned in emotion.
So the encouragement that everybody gave me to make this journey. It was so overwhelming. So thank you all. Here we are. An amazing thing to have tried and done.
The next year, we hiked to Annapurna Base Camp in Nepal. Most of the people have gone now, just a few are left on this ridge that is above the camp. The sun is out in the mountains now. It's a holy place. In 2013, we trekked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. We continued our adventures, scaling climbing walls, hunting hunting for fossils, and kayaking waters of British Columbia. I learned that giving back restores mental and emotional health. We helped start pedaling for Parkinson's classes. We joined research programs, Doug as control and I as patient. I serve on boards for the Parkinson's Disease Foundation and the Parkinson's Creative Collective. To share my experiences, I wrote a book. If I can climb Mount Kilimanjaro, why can't I brush my teeth? Courage, tenacity, and love meet Parkinson's disease. I give talks to inspire others to cycle at 80 to 90 RPM. Activity is central to success. Dance for PDE both heals our bodies and makes our spirits laugh. We fish. On my 70th birthday, we fished at the base of Gibbon Falls in Yellowstone and scrambled up the canyon wall to the parking lot. I can still ski, not great, but generally upright.
Here she comes. 70-year-old woman with Parkinson's. Keep going. Keep going.
Parkinson's is the hardest mountain we have to climb. I climb it every day. You can too. Just keep going.
What could be better than riding your bike on a beautiful morning on Sydney Sport? Ride and fish.
Help me.
Think doing all this and yet to be together. What a way to be Parkinson's.
I have no clue. Did not.
Today.
Fast-paced cycling gave me back my life. In 2009, a year into my new life with Parkinson's, I began to take charge. Learning that cycling at 80 to 90 RPMs might reduce PD symptoms, I rode almost every day. Symptoms under control, I rode across Iowa with Dr. Jay Alberts pedaling for Parkinson's team 5 times, building strength and confidence over the 450 miles. Doug and I climbed mountains. On July 18th, 2011, at age 65, I stood on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, perhaps the oldest woman with Parkinson's to do so. I drowned in emotion.
All the encouragement that everybody gave me to make this journey.
Yeah, go get Melissa.
We'll go get Melissa.
This happens to me so many times you can't even imagine. None of you brilliant people know how to work this machine.
Well,
Not
we're
brilliant.
waiting, when we leave today, would you be sure you sign the, get this register out here that you were kind of try to keep track of who's here? Some did. Well, I can pass it around, would that be easier?
Melissa's coming as soon as she's through with
I think you did.
Sue? Sue?
Okay, I think we got it.
Okay.
Let's hope and pray.
all.
Let's make sure we do. There we go. Okay, we're ready. Sorry about that, folks, but it happens to me so many times. I was in Virginia a couple of months ago and giving a talk to a after dinner group, and there were about 150 women in the group, and I said to them, there are 3 things I want you to remember from this talk. One is Parkinson's is not your fault. Second is you have choices, and third, you can do this. We started the talk, and of course the audio visual went just like it did here, and I was getting all flustered and whatever, and the IT guy working behind me, and this woman from the middle of the audience shouted out, "It's not your fault!" So that was good to know. So there's 3 things that you remember at the end of this. It's the same message for everybody. It's not your fault. You do have choices. this does not mean you can climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Plus that you step closer to them because some in the back can't hear.
All right, can you hear me now? I'll speak as loud as I can. If you can't hear, raise your hand. And if at any time I start getting too quiet, raise your hand and I'll speak up.
Just don't be afraid to go right into the middle and look at them. That's
Well, I've
it.
got to be able to see what it's like.
I speak loudly and they get on me.
Do they?
It's because they don't speak loudly and they can't hear, so it goes both ways.
Right, okay, we'll let that be.
They have choices.
Okay, so starting first of all, you guys I'm sure know this, but I'm gonna run through a little bit of what is Parkinson's in the first place. It's idiopathic, no known origins. Well, if you take a lot of diseases that we do know the origins and we can go from the origins to get to some solutions. But there's no known origin for Parkinson's. 3 to 5% are genetic. Now they're saying maybe 10% are genetic. Pretty soon 50% will be genetic. Pretty soon we'll all be genetic. Who knows? They're working on it and they don't have the answers yet. We do know it is incurable and it's neurodegenerative. So that isn't a very pretty picture. I was diagnosed in February of 2008 and I listened to all this stuff and I was not a happy camper. The physical characteristics is there's this part of your brain called the substantia nigra, and 70 to 80% of that is dead by the time you're even diagnosed with Parkinson's. Well, imagine sitting there in the doctor's office and hearing part of your brain is dead. No, thank you, this was not what I signed up for. You're not producing dopamine, the happy factor, and in fact I was not happy. I lost my sense of smell. My face became like this. My granddaughter looked at me and she says, "Don't make that face, Grandma." She was 5 at the time. Your balance is compromised. Mine is not. I'm really good at balancing. I can stand on my foot for over a minute sometimes. But you have bradykinesia, the slowness of movement. Some people freeze. Some people have dyskinesia, the wobbly movements. Some people have a number of other things. Dystonia, cramps. I'll wake up in the night sometimes and my foot will be cramped. Rigidity has not been a problem. Dementia, I'm afraid of dementia because while you're going through it, it's awful. At the end of it, once you've lost your mind, it's just awful for everybody around you, and I hope not to get that. A soft voice. How am I doing on the soft voice? Doing pretty good, okay, good. I used to be a teacher, so I'm used to yelling at the students. Constipation is not fun, and especially when you're giving a talk, gas is not fun, but you know, I'm among friends, so if it happens, it happens. I certainly lost the ability to write, and of course, I couldn't brush my teeth. So I got the electric toothbrush, and that worked pretty well, but it's just, you know, here you are, a grown woman, and you can't brush your teeth. That is sad. So the physical parts of it are the most apparent. If you're bobbling around, one of my friends has got terrible dyskinesias, and he sits in the front row at the opera. And now they've asked him to kind of not come to the opera because he's more distracting than the people on the stage. It's very difficult. Confusion. There are many times, I got here today, it was good, I followed all the directions, thank God for iPhone. But there are times that I get very confused. Now hallucinations. A lot of people get hallucinations. I was worried about hallucinations until, here's the night. I'm sleeping. All of a sudden, I look over and next to me, there's a young man. Buff, looking great. Stark naked. I'm up on my elbow to get a look at this guy. There's my husband. In his pajamas, under the covers. So much for hallucinations. I was so happy with my hallucinations. Oh well, you have to make the best out of these things, you know? That's what I do. The loss of executive functions. I can't do math hardly at all anymore. I do a lot of quilting and I get all mixed up and cut the wrong sizes, and it's a terrible thing. But, you know, it goes with the territory. And then there's the Lewy body dementia, the possible dementia. Emotional is sense of isolation. I don't know if you guys feel this too, but when you're in a group of I just feel like I'm out of the conversation. I feel separated from them. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads going here. And I've taken my time to explain to them that it takes me an extra 3 to 5 seconds to process what somebody's been saying in a group of people. So if they're talking, you talk, and then you start talking right away. I haven't had that 3 to 5 seconds to frame my answer, so I just get more and more quiet, and then pretty soon I don't want to come, and I'm isolated. And that's something to fight. It's something you don't want to become isolated. It hurts. You can't communicate your feelings. My third grandchild was born and went into the ICU immediately. I felt nothing. And how can you have, the birth of a grandchild, one of the most glorious things in the world, and have something wrong with that grandchild and not feel anything? What is the matter with me? Fortunately, now I've been able to confront that and say, okay, this is a part of Parkinson's. This is not who I am. This is a part of Parkinson's, so put it in its box and go ahead and love the little guy. He's fine now, by the way. Apathy and despair, depression, these were all not happy things that I was experiencing. Well, was I alone? No. There are 5 to 6 million people worldwide who have Parkinson's disease, 1.5 million in the U.S. with 50 to 60,000 diagnosed each year. It's generally an issue of aging. So look around the room, folks. We're not 20 years old. The average age of onset is 62 years and 4 months. I was 62 years and 4 months when I was diagnosed. It's not your fault. A lot of people said to me, what did you do to get Parkinson's? Surely you must have done something. God is paying you back for something. I don't believe that. It's not your fault. It's idiopathic, no known origin. It just happens. So, what are you going to do about it? That's the issue. There is a way to live effectively, and that's what I'm finding. Your choices. You can embrace it and say, what's your opportunity? You saw the little video? I said, well, what can I do? I found out about this biking program, and I called the neuroscientist at the Cleveland Clinic, Jay Alberts, and asked him about it, because I'd seen a piece on NBC Nightly News. And he said, why don't you guys ride across Iowa with us? And I said, sure. I hung up the phone, and I thought, wait a minute. You're 63 years old, I was at the time. You've got Parkinson's disease. You walk like this. Your arm is stuck at the side. Your hand is all curled up in a cramp. You can't turn your head any more than 90 degrees. And you just said you were going to ride your bike across Iowa? You must be out of your mind. It was. But it was a challenge. It was an opportunity. And so I got on my bike and I started riding, practicing not 3 hours a week, but 4 to 6 hours each time. I would go maybe an hour and a half to 4 hours, 4 to 6 days a week is what I did. You can decide that you can take action, like I did. You can become partners in research. Sometimes they're very non-invasive, and sometimes they're taking drugs and they're more invasive, difficult. I am more fit now than I was before I got Parkinson's. And I'm 71 years old. Now, think of that. I'm more fit now than I was before I got Parkinson's. That's crazy, but it's true. Some people say they're not going to take cinnamon. They're not going to take the drug of choice because they're worried that something might happen to them later on. Today's the day you're alive. Today's the day you can do it. Go ahead and take the medicine that's there. And then the other thing is, I was just talking with Steve here before the thing started, accept the support. You're not alone. We're both very fortunate. I'm fortunate, and your wife is fortunate too to have somebody who cares a great deal about you. Doug is almost always here at these meetings. He had another meeting to go to today. But you're not alone. Accept support from other people. It's okay. You have my permission. So I talked to the neurologist or the neuroscientist at the Cleveland Clinic, and he told me about this pedaling for Parkinson's. And he said if you can do a 10-minute warm-up on a bike, a stationary bike is fine, or a road bike, whatever you can get on. If you can pedal for 40 minutes at 80 to 90 RPM, which is twirling around pretty fast, but you just, let's see, you put it down, okay. You just lower the resistance on your bike, and you can go 80 to 90 RPM. Not probably the first 5 minutes you try it, but you can work up to it. And then 10 minutes of cool down. Keep your heart rate between 60 and 80% of your maximum heart rate, and go for it. Do it 3 times a week. The research showed that if you could do this, if you did this, you would have an average reduction of your symptoms of 35%. Well, I heard that and I thought, I'd rather have 35% less of this stuff than I've got right now. So I'm gonna go for it. So I got on the bike and pedaled. In their research, the residual effects lasted for 4 weeks after they stopped the cycling. Well, that was pretty cool. I don't see why anybody would stop cycling once you have those kind of results. Any rate, at that point, I got on my bike. And in April of '09, I started to cycle really intensely, much more than that 3 hours a week. Anywhere from an hour and a half to 4 hours, 4 to 6 days a week. I would pedal and pedal and pedal. A month later, I was walking my dogs. I'm walking along. All of a sudden, I realized I had my body back. It's like a gift. I stood there on the sidewalk and held those leashes and cried, and those dogs wagged their tails, and I just bawled. I had my body back. I've since ridden across Iowa 6 times, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which was not easy. I do not recommend it at all. But I have a trainer, which I got off of Craigslist. I put my bike up on the trainer. We have a little camper van. Wherever we go, I put the bike up on the trainer and I ride my bike pretty much every day. If it's raining, I get in the shelter somewhere. I sit in front of Cabela's, the main store in Nebraska, biking away, and all these people came up and said, "Are you selling bikes or what?" Oh well. So first I bike and then I fish. I like fishing a lot. That's good. Yeah, that's a good reason to go. So we pedaled through flat Iowa, which those of you who've been to Iowa can attest that it is not flat. Over and over, up and down these hills. Here's our Pedaling for Parkinson's group. Iowa has this thing called RAGBRAI, the Registered Annual Great Bike Ride across Iowa. And anywhere from 5 to 20,000 people might be on the road any one day for the week of this ride. So this is our group that's hung out together. Every town has entertainment. It's sort of like Burning Man on wheels. It's just a big party that floats across Iowa for a week. Get homemade ice cream, relax. That's Doug, the guy you don't get to see today, and one of the dogs. Jay Alberts and his kids. He rides a triplet and hauls his kids. The man is a lot stronger than I am. And Doug and myself on our bikes, we dance. We dance for PD. There's a wonderful program. I don't know if you have it here or not, but it is fabulous. And if you can't get it here as a program, you can get DVDs and do it, you know, with your group here, even without a leader. But I would encourage you to contact the Dance for PD people and get the program here if you don't have it. It's fabulous. So after I'd done this RAGBRAI thing for 2 years, I got a call from a woman who said that somebody was putting together a climb of Mount Kilimanjaro, and it was going to be for people with MS and Parkinson's. So they had 10 people with MS and 4 of us with Parkinson's. I was the only woman with Parkinson's. I was the oldest person with the disease in the group. So we're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, Mount Kilimanjaro is 1 mile higher than Mount Rainier. Did I want to do this? I'd never ridden a bike across the state before. Why not? So we trained for 7 months. I found that having encouragement was, I still find that the encouragement from other people makes all the difference. So when I ride my bike, I take a list of all the people who have supported me by donating to Pedaling for Parkinson's, and I put that in the back seat of my bike. And so when I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I thought, well, I want to do something more special. So I'd ask people if they would send in little 2 by 3 inch pieces of fabric, and they would just have their names on them, and I would sew them all together and make a little banner. Well, obviously my friends have no sense of what 2 by 3 inches is. None whatsoever. Even that one that has the little mountains right underneath my chin, Exercise Your Brain, that one was by Dr. Alberts. Now you would think that he would know 2 inches by 3 inches, obviously not. But that banner went all the way to the top of Kilimanjaro. And every time we all were feeling a little bit rough, we got out the banner. A banner of encouragement. We had 130 porters and 31 trekkers in our group, so it was nothing like a private trip up of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was a whole village going up there. So one night we came into this valley that was shrouded in fog, and they said, you're going to climb up out of this place the next morning. It won't be foggy. It's called the Barranco Wall, but we call it the breakfast wall because usually when people see it, that's what they lose. And indeed, when we got up the next morning and the fog had lifted, that was our route up the Barranco Wall. Well, I had a friend in Seattle who said to me before we left, she said, well, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, that's like taking a walk in the park at high elevation. Sure. More than a walk. But it was a special bonding time too, as you can imagine. This woman has MS. She's since gotten her doctorate in physical therapy at the University of Washington. She scampered up that mountain. I just like the picture. When we were on the way over to Tanzania, Doug picked up a cold on the plains. And he had a cough, a terrible, terrible cough. He could hardly breathe. Plus, he wasn't generating much oxygen. Many nights when they would give us our oxygen check, his would be at 69%. Mine was in the 90s. I'm apparently an oxygen producer, and he's an oxygen user. So it was clear that the night that we were climbing, summiting the mountain, he probably wasn't going to make it. And he looked at me and he says, I know you can do this. I know you can do this. So I believed him. And I did. So that's the night before the final ascent. We left at about 10:45 at night and climbed in the dark. It was like a centipede of headlamps going up that mountain. It was our group and other groups as well. And then you heard the video that I played on the other thing at the top. And of course the banner had to come out at the top. No question about it. We had 7 months of training. We climbed thousands of steps. Talked to a mountain climber in Seattle, Jim Woodwire, and he just said one word, steps. What can we do to prepare, Jim? Steps. That's it. So up and down the steps we went. We climbed every small mountain in sight. We went to Canada. We went all over the place. And it is the hardest thing I've ever done. We had a chance to maybe go again this summer. I decided against it. It took us 7 months or more to recover, and some things never did quite come back. I went for about 1.5 years not being able to read. I could decode words. I could sound, you would think I knew what I was reading, but if you asked me, I didn't know. That was pretty discouraging to somebody who'd been at the university. But on Kilimanjaro, I showed myself that I'm capable of a lot more than I ever expected. And that's part of the message I try to give to other people. Whether it's getting up, coming to a meeting, walking around the block, taking care of yourself in some little way, you can do more than you expect you can do. That's what I learned on Kilimanjaro. It never occurred to me I could climb this mountain. I thought I'd be one who got up there part way and then just waited for the rest to come down. But I kept going, just like I did in the video. So Ragbri stretches my tenacity. It goes for a week. The climb to Kilimanjaro went for a week as well. But Kili forced me to confront my limitations in ways that were very new. I would be climbing up next day before I got down to base camp again. And I remember looking at a rock and saying, leg, go up. Go over that rock. Okay, leg, follow. I was in the exact moment, forcing myself to do what needed to be done. I thought about my relatives, about my great-grandfather who had gone to Alaska in the gold rush in 1898 and had gotten dysentery up in Dawson City in January. He hiked out. He was told he would die if he stayed there. So he put as much stuff as he would need for 30 days in his backpack, and he hiked, and 28 days later, he was back at Skagway. I thought, if Grandpa could do that without an REI backpack or frozen food, I can do this. I can do this. I come from strong genes. I can face this thing. So after Kili, I realized that every day we have these struggles to overcome. Every one of us has these struggles to overcome. And we struggle, and that gives us meaning in our lives. And it gives our spouses meaning as well. They're not just doing nothing because they see us working really hard to make a difference as well. We climb a mountain higher than Kili every single day, and most of the time, nobody cheers when I get out of bed. Nobody cheers when I make it to the bathroom at 3 in the morning. Y'all can cheer because I drove over here this morning. But really, these daily things, that's what takes the courage and the tenacity, I think. You may think something different, but I think it's that daily pursuing of small goals that makes all the difference. So, some people said to me, you know, if you just put your mind to it, you can do anything. That's not so. My father had ALS. My brother had ALS. They tried. My brother would say, Nan, biking is so good for you. I'm going to bike and I'm going to beat this ALS. And then he finally said, I'm going to donate my brain to research. Because that's the way this is going, and that's what he did. If you try and fail, was it just because you didn't try hard enough? No. That's nonsense. You can't do absolutely everything. But we do function, and I think that's kind of a miracle all by itself. So congratulations, you all function. So the next year, Doug didn't have a cold, and he wanted to see whether his not getting up Kilimanjaro had something to do with just his body's self, or whether it was just the cold. So we decided to go to Nepal and climb to Annapurna Base Camp, which was the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. And it was also challenging because I had some cysts on my spine, and I had a dislocated, herniated disc. And I didn't train as much as I should have. And so I started focusing on the pain. And that's not a good thing to focus on. You have to focus on what you're accomplishing, not on the pain. I did find if I would lie on my back at every break and pedal upside down, it helped. Guess I'm into biking. So I had this guide named Mohan, and he was determined he was going to help me. I was not going to let him carry my pack, so he said, can I take some things out of your pack? So he took out my Gore-Tex jacket, my really good Gore-Tex jacket, that red one you saw in the Kilimanjaro video. And he took out my little Nano Puff lightweight jacket as well, put them on the back of his pack. About 45 minutes later, we stopped for a little rest stop, and they were not, the red marker was not on the back of his pack anymore. Oh no. Here we were going up into these mountains, and I didn't have my Gore-Tex jacket. Not a good idea. He ran back down the path with somebody else. I said to him when he came back, Mohan, somebody else needed that jacket more than I did. When we get back to our group, somebody else will have a jacket. Don't worry about it. So that was fine until we turned around and looked up the valley, or looked down the valley, and saw what was coming toward us. That was what was coming toward us. So when the rain hit, it was just a deluge, just a sheeting and there was a little stone house next to the path. So he ducked his head in the stone house, and here is this little lady sitting there with a little fire on her hearth, and in a moment I was sitting on a chair, sort of like a Target plastic little white chair. Where that came from, who knows? Anyway, we're sitting there on a chair, and all of our porters came in. The place was about as big as from the two sides of the screen squared. So we had 10 porters. We had myself and Mohan, and then another guy from our group came in. We had the lady on the harp who had the chickens in their basket, cackling away, cackle, 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 cackle. The rain on the roof was thundering down. We were laughing so hard I thought we would split a gut. It was so much fun. We had a great time. Finally, the rain let up a little bit, and the porters went off, and pretty soon the rain stopped, and we went off too, and I lost a jacket and got a great story. So that was fine. These are the kind of steps we climbed. Thousands of them. Up, you go up and then down, down and way down in the valley, and then up the next one, and down and up and down and up. And then we got to the place where the avalanche had taken out the bridge over the river. We decided it was not OSHA approved. But it was pretty cool going across it, you know, something I would never have done in my life. Had I not had Parkinson's, I wouldn't have gone on any of these trips at all. So we stayed in tea houses when we got there, and the most amazing thing, everything had to be brought up by hand because there were no roads to be, you saw the steps, so there were no roads, so everything brought up by hand. Every night we would get to the tea house, and can you imagine what would be on that table? Beer and Pringles. Oh. So you stuff yourself with beer and Pringles and then a lentil soup, and there you were. There were other bridges that were, quote, OSHA approved, but they were beautiful. They all had prayer flags on them, and once you've been over one of those bridges, you know why there are prayer flags on them. Oh my gosh. My heart. Isn't that dear? So we got up there, and as you can gather, I'm into making quilting things. So I made this thing and carried it up to the top of Annapurna Base Camp, and then we auctioned it off at the APDA auction that year, and it got, I think, $1,200 for that. The prayer flags that are needed. So for about a year and a half, my shoulder got frozen. I don't know why, it just one day, it just wouldn't move. So it was not easy. I couldn't turn the key in the car engine. I couldn't do any of these things that are listed there, including brushing my teeth. I couldn't steer my bike, and I went over an embankment and got tangled up with a lady and broke my finger. But I went to dance for PD, and they said, now I want you to stand there with your feet together and do these plies. Boing, boing. I couldn't put my hand in my pocket and pull it out. I had to pull it out with my other hand. Boing, boing, boing. Okay, folks, move your feet to the fifth position, like this. Go like this. Boing. And there, whoa. What's happening here? Why is it doing this? My arm is going up. Move your legs farther apart, people. Boing, boing, boing. Move your feet way far apart. Boing, boing. 71 years old, I do this every day. And my shoulder thawed, as it were. No more frozen shoulder. Thank you, David Leventhal and the Dance for PD group. The next year we went to Machu Picchu. We kind of got into the climbing thing there for a while. We really got into steps. And there we are, up and looking down on Machu Picchu. So we had this guide that was a pretty funny guy, and he was always pulling tricks on everyone. So we decided to sort of turn the tables a little bit, and I knew that I could count on this guy for anything to be funny. So my daughter had written me an email, and she said, I want you to do 2 things while you're in Peru. One, you need to drink some Peruvian beer, that had already been accomplished. And two, I want you to learn a swear word in Quechua, the native language of Peru. A swear word in Quechua. Who could I ask? Well, I could ask Francis, our guide, because he was always screwing with our brains anyway. I could ask him for a swear word in Quechua. So I went and asked him, and he looked at me and he said, "You are the last person in this group that I would expect to ask that question." That's the way it goes, Francis. So he thought for a minute, and then he started grinning, and his eyes started to sparkle, and he said, "Sequita muchai." Sequita muchai. Say it. Sequita muchai. So I said, "Sequita muchai." He says, "Now you see that young porter over there? The youngest one of the group? You go over there and say to him, Sequita muchai." Francis, what does it mean? It means, kiss my ass. So I went over to this young man and I looked at him, he's about a foot, at least a foot taller than I am. And I looked up at his face and I smiled and I said, "Sequita muchai." And these guys about went through the ground. That was great. You look for it wherever you go, there's always got to be something
What's your
funny
elevation?
happening.
What's
So-
your elevation there in Peru?
Oh, in Peru, I think the highest was 13.8. Yeah, that was just going over the passes. It wasn't nearly as bad as Kilimanjaro. So what are we doing now? I do these Pedaling for Parkinson's programs, help start those all over the country. I'm the national coordinator for Pedaling for Parkinson's. I do a lot of research, and I'll tell you about one of them in a minute. I do a lot of advocacy, as you can tell. Here is the poster for the Seattle Pedaling for Parkinson's program. If you don't have one here now, you certainly have enough candidates for it. The keys to success for these things are, as you read, just encouragement, fun. It's very much like this group. It looks to me like you get together, you have a good time. Only this way you're pedaling. You're having a support group on wheels if you're pedaling, and you're getting better while you're doing this. And if anybody wants to get something started around here, I'm the conduit, so don't hesitate to ask. Plus, you get super t-shirts. This is at the National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C. Doesn't hurt. So, somebody called me one day and asked if I would help, if they could put some of my stuff in this book, The Peripatetic Pursuit of Parkinson's Disease. See, I know how to pronounce it. Yes, it took a while. So I am part of this, and I'm part of the board of directors for this Parkinson's Creative Collective. Now, you are the first group I've talked to since this happened, because 2 days ago, our board met, and we decided that we would give away free copies of this book to people with Parkinson's and to all of the Dance for PD groups and Pedaling for Parkinson's group. So we're putting together a code, and you'll be able to get the code and then go on the PCC website, and if you use the code, they would just send you a book for free. Now the book is also available for download. It's heavy, it's like 2 pounds. So I'm leaving it here with Dee. It's right there. But there are download instructions, so if you want it electronically, you can just go follow these instructions and this book will appear on your computer. So this is for free as well. We've decided to finally disband the group. We're getting older and some of us are not well. And so we decided to give away the last 1,000 copies of the book and $37,000 that we have in our pot. So we're going to give that to various groups that are providing services for people with Parkinson's. It's a great group of people. It's been wonderful working with them, and it's hard to disband, but there comes a time. I've been on the People with Parkinson's Advisory Council for the Parkinson's Disease Foundation. And then, as I look at it, I say, historically, there was no choice. Where's Janice? Janice? Joanne. Got the J right. Been having Parkinson's for, what'd you say, 40 years, 44 years? 40 years. And 40 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of choices. very beginnings of medicine, that was it. Now there are a lot of choices. Today you can have medicine and hard work, and if you're lucky, I think there are lots of different kinds of Parkinson's. I think just looking around the room, we can tell there are different kinds of Parkinson's, just like there's breast cancer and skin cancer and all kinds of things. I think there are lots of different kinds of Parkinson's as well, and they're just starting to sort that out. But you can have medicine and hard work, and you have a chance of at least going into remission. It's certainly not curing the disease. I'm not saying anything I do is curing the disease. But cycling is not a cure, but it can put you on hold. And I think that's what it's done pretty much for me, is put me on hold until they find that cure. What we can do, we can define our own journeys, participate in research trials, and I'm going to tell you about one of those in just a moment. Take charge of our own lives as best we can. And I say, get off your butt, get on your bike, roll it. Remember, it's not your fault. You have choices, and you can do this. So I want to tell you about this. I thought there was another slide that's not so. This research study that I'm just in right now. In December, on NeuroTalk, one of the chat room groups, there appeared an announcement saying that Stanford University was going to do a trial with young plasma. They were going to inject young plasma from 18 to 25-year-old males into people about my age and about my level of Parkinson's, and see if it would do anything to mitigate our disease. Now, they tried this on people with Alzheimer's and on rats. The rats, of course, always get better. But the people with Alzheimer's got better too. Their memory and their motion got better as well. So somebody had given Stanford $1 million to test 18 people to see if this young plasma made any difference with folks with Parkinson's. Well, I read this and I thought I fit the demographic, so I called them that day. And I'm patient number 1 in the world to have had the plasma infusions from 18 to 25-year-old males. I figured if nothing else happened, getting blood from Stanford students was going to make me smart. Don't know about that. At any rate, in January and February, I flew down to Palo Alto, San Jose and Palo Alto, every week for 6 weeks. Had extensive testing, both on and off medication, before the program started. Then each time I flew down, I would have 2 infusions, and then I would come down on Wednesday, have an infusion on Thursday, fly back and forth, till I had all my 8 infusions. At the end of the 8 infusions, I went through all the on and off medication tests again, and then 5 weeks later, I went through the on and off medication tests again. Lots of airplane time. I used frequent flyer miles for all of it. So each trip cost me 10,000 frequent flyer miles and $11. So at any rate, when I started out, the pre-test, I only know the level 3 of the UPDRS test, but my score was 28 on the off medication and 13 on the on medication. At the end of the infusion periods, my score was 14, gone from 28 to 14 on the off medications, and had gone from 13 to 10 in the on medications. 5 weeks later, my score was at 14 still in the off medications, and 7. 5 means you don't have Parkinson's. So, now they're going through the rest of the 18 people. Probably won't have any research results to publish for another 2 years or a year and a half. But my experience was that I felt great, and I still do feel great. Most of my symptoms are gone. Not all. I still hit my husband at night. I still shout out at night. All right, this happens to other people as well. Somebody's hysterical over here. So.
Yeah, you start thinking about changing the other side of the bed.
Yeah, I changed bedrooms. I mean, I was dangerous.
We'll talk later.
research, it's near and dear to my heart. And that's where we're at this point. So, thank you.
So that young plasma, how do they obtain it then? From
Donors.
From young people or what?
Yeah, young men 18 to 25 years old. We figured women, they didn't do women because there are too many hormones changing.
How many cc's or the volume of at each of the infusions is there?
It was, one of those little bags,
Okay, like an IV.
like an IV. Thank you. Now here come the questions I won't know the answers to. Go ahead.
Is that, I read a little about stem cell research, is this the same thing?
No,
It isn't? All right.
no.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
So something like that, it takes a long time to get FDA approval for something like that, right? Or a lot of research involved.
As I look at it, we're probably talking 10 years. It probably isn't gonna affect me. Maybe it will. Maybe I'll get lucky. But at least it's moving. Something's on the path.
You just need to find a 25-year-old, 18-year-old who wants to donate blood.
Yeah, it's plasma. They sort of centrifuge it out, so it's plasma, not just whole blood. But it's encouraging. I wanna see some smiles here. It's encouraging. Well, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. My salesperson is here with the books. And thank you very much. Thank you for everybody.
Oh, thank you, Ann, very, very much.
Okay, I've got a question.
Okay.
What kind of a bike for pedaling do you recommend?
A bike that has pedals that go around. No, it can be, and I say that, it sounds really stupid, but people are asking me that all the time. I use a road bike that I put up on a trainer when it's inside. I use it on the road outside. It can be a spin cycle, it can be a recumbent bike, it can be a tricycle, anything that the pedals go around.
So people that go in that program, can they cut back on medication, or they're less dependent on medication, or is there any effect?
And the pedaling for
Yeah.
Parkinson's? Yeah. There's definitely an effect. I've seen people walk in with walkers and canes and walk out on their own. Really.
So is there something made, I know there's bikes that can sit on, keep you still to let you roll.
Right.
But the problem is, when there's a balance issue, and, which could tip it over, is there something in particular that's being used?
That's where your tricycle comes in, your down low, or your recumbent bike. A bike that's a spin cycle that's got 4 places, 4 feet is helpful. You wanna go to a bike shop or, talk to your doctor or, give me a call if you want. But, any kind of bike that. Yeah.
And when Dee was diagnosed, we tried doing it on the road. But because of traffic and unevenness and so on, she could not maintain that RPM. So we got a stationary bike. And
A lot of people do.
That's working great.
Good, good. A lot of people do use stationary bikes, and if you go to the YMCA for one of their programs, of course, there are stationary bikes, and you also have the benefit of talking with other people, having your support group on wheels, which is great.
When you went on this experimental deal with plasma, did you quit taking your regular Parkinson's medicine?
One thing you wanna do when you're in a research program, Norm, is to maintain everything except for the one variable, as close as you can, so I kept everything the same.
What was that question?
Did I change my medication or do anything differently when I was in the Stanford study? And no, I didn't. You just wanna change one variable, so you're testing one thing. So if you change 4 or 5, you don't know what made the difference. Somebody back here had a question?
I'm curious with, the pedaling and the YMCA, I read your book, how many people are participating in that? And, director that finances the bikes and pays the rent. Explain a little bit how we would maybe get started here with that, but I think
We
there's
don't have
lot.
a why.
You don't have a Y. Where's your closest Y?
Well, Spokane
Wenatchee, probably.
has a pedaling for Parkinson's.
Do you have a JCC? Jewish Community Center?
No.
Probably
We
not.
have gyms, is all we have, like private, like South Campus has a whole room full of,
Is it LA Fitness, that sort of stuff?
We've got
You have gyms?
Steve Roylance is here, he's one of our
he's a physical
physical
therapist.
therapist that is doing LSVT big to go in right as we speak. She took today off to be here.
Uh-huh.
So, Steve, can you, as you listen to that, can you see facility-wise within Moses Lake, where and how we could get a group of 10 to 15?
The first thing that I did was go to a bike shop in Seattle, R&E Cycles, and I talked to them about making tandems because I thought we had to have tandems. They made us 4 high-end tandem bikes at cost. So then I called up a few friends of mine, and within a week I had $10,000 for those tandems. So that was helpful. I went to a hospital and said, okay, this is what we want to do. Do you have the resources that we could run the program at the hospital? Do you have a physical therapy center here at the hospital that has some bikes? You don't need to have 10 or 15 bikes to start with. It'd be nice to work up to that. Often, you know, bike shops or, what do you call them, like LA Fitness or, you know, wherever they have a group of bikes. Do you have a campus here?
Well, we have, the South Campus has a whole room full of spin bikes. But, you know, getting on those is not gonna work for some people. And they have a lot of recumbent bikes and it would,
It'd be worth your while to go talk to them and see if you could put something together. I'd be happy to talk to them too.
How long, starting out, how long do you recommend to pedal, like, to get started?
Right, it's 3 times a week, and you have a 10-minute warm-up, 40 minutes riding at 80 to 90 RPM, and 10-minute cool down. So 3 hours a week, and most of those bicycles in various gyms are sitting idle for most of the week.
But at day one, you can't do that, right? You just start out with 4, 5, or 10 minutes, or?
No, I think one of the most interesting stories was when we first started out, we selected 4 people to be part of the first Pedaling for Parkinson's program. And one was a woman from India who was overweight, to say the least. She had never been in Lycra, never worn pants, actually, in her life. And she was determined she was gonna do this, and she got up to 80 on the first day.
Up to what?
80 RPM. It was pretty amazing. But usually people, you know, work incrementally. Maybe they ride for 10 minutes, take a minute break or a 2-minute break, ride for another 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sort of like me getting my foot up over those rocks. You know, I can do this, I can do this.
it isn't as hard as you think with no resistance. It's, you know, your legs are pretty strong usually.
So they make a Parkinson's bike that's, it's like an assisted.
This is called the TheraCycle, and I've talked to Jay Alberts about that, and he does not recommend it.
Okay, they're not getting the same results from that.
Right.
Gotcha.
Very expensive and the bike does all
Yes.
the work, so to speak. Your feet are on there, but I can't make a difference.
So the hardest part for some people might be just getting on and getting off, or just getting on.
That's why having it in a group setting or with your partner there with you, it's important to have, you know, somebody helping you out.
Okay.
We bought a bike in Spokane, or it's actually what's it called? It's recumbent, but it's
It's that weird.
The elliptical type?
elliptical,
There you go.
elliptical,
It's that weird bike.
elliptical.
Looks impossible to me, but they claim it's great.
I couldn't imagine doing it 80 to 90
unfortunately, it's in our basement, you have to negotiate stairs to get to it, but
That's your fault.
that's not, you can do it. You get downstairs.
Turning to the dancing for Parkinson's, we've, seen through the telehealth, Spokane has quite a program, and it's done out of Whitworth University. How, is that pretty much what helped cure your frozen shoulder? Is that what that?
It's either that or a heck of a coincidence, because it happened during the dance class. And it might have been a coincidence, you know, I can't say for sure what it was, but there I was, not able to get my hand out of my pocket by myself, to going like this. It was magic.
There's something about music